The science fiction story begins by showing a lady named Carol, who is a doctor and trapped inside a strange chamber. Carol is continuously collecting unusual medicines to prevent herself from falling asleep, as falling asleep could lead to very bad things happening to her. At this moment, we see someone repeatedly banging on the chamber door, as if someone is trying to force their way in with the intention of harming Carol. However, Carol does not open the door, and to understand what is happening to her, we need to go back in time. Sometime earlier, a spaceship is shown landing from the sky towards Earth. Due to several system failures, the spacecraft went out of control and was unable to manage its speed, causing it to crash directly into the ground and explode. Debris from the spacecraft scattered everywhere, and people witnessed this dangerous scene with their own eyes. Scientists discovered that the parts of the spacecraft contained strange organisms that had the ability to survive in any environment. This news quickly spread, and it was believed that these were alien species from space. NASA wanted to conduct more research on these findings, so they collected all the debris. The situation escalated to the point where the director of that location was called in to see the organisms for himself. After collecting all the information, as the director was leaving, a small lady approached him with a small piece of the spacecraft. This piece had small dots of the same organisms on it. As the girl handed the piece to the director, he was injured by it. Ignoring this incident, the director returned home. However, during the night, his face became covered in a strange liquid, and he was in severe agony. And perhaps all these events happened because of the injury to his hand. The director's condition had deteriorated significantly, but by morning, he appeared completely normal. Whatever problem he had was suddenly resolved for some unknown reason. However, the director's facial expression seemed quite different, and his entire personality had changed. He immediately called his ex-wife, Kelly, with whom he had divorced long ago. Kelly was the same lady we saw at the beginning of the story. The director told Kelly that he wanted to see his son, who was with her. However, Kelly informed him that, according to the court, her child would remain with her. The director persistently requested that he too should be allowed to meet his son, but Kelly hung up the phone and did not continue the conversation. Kelly was now in a car with her colleague, Ben, who was accompanying her to work. Kelly explained everything to Ben about how her ex-husband wanted to meet their son. Ben advised her that it was the father's right to see his child, and at least the father should not feel deprived of his son. Therefore, she should allow them to meet. Kelly understood this well and decided to take her son to her ex-husband's house. She left him there for a while so that they could spend time together. Kelly's son, Peter, noticed that his father's facial expressions were very unusual. Previously, when Peter would meet his father, they would laugh a lot and have fun. However, after that night, the director's condition was such that he only maintained one expression on his face, as if he neither knew how to laugh nor to cry. This was very strange to Peter, and he stayed around to keep an eye on his father, harboring suspicions. Meanwhile, Kelly was shown at her home, cooking comfortably, when suddenly a man arrived at her door. He claimed to be a government agent and said he needed to talk to her. Kelly was suspicious, so she left the door slightly locked and went to inquire further. But then she saw that the same unknown man was trying to open the door and come inside. Kelly quickly went to him and managed to close the door tightly. The man outside looked at Kelly in a very strange way, and his face was expressionless, just like Kelly's ex-husband's had been. When Kelly later went outside with her car, she was even more shocked to find that many people were staring at her, and their faces also resembled the government agents, appearing very dangerous and frightening. Carol was bewildered by all this and wondered what was happening with these people. When she arrived at her office, she saw many people standing around in the same emotionless manner, as if they had no feelings at all and were only intimidating those who were normal. Carol became very anxious about why these cases were increasing and what could be causing such behavior. She immediately went inside her office to investigate where these cases were occurring. She found millions of results indicating that many people were reporting their relatives and others becoming emotionless, as if their entire bodies were under someone else's control. Carol couldn't make sense of it, as it didn't seem to be caused by any virus. So she went to her friend Ben to discuss the cases and tell him everything. Ben was also shocked, as he had recently seen these cases, but the number of cases was increasing rapidly. Therefore, Ben and Carol went directly to a doctor who was a scientist specializing in these matters. The doctor had been researching these patients for several days and had uncovered a dark reality. The doctor explained to them that the spacecraft that had landed on Earth had brought with it many microorganisms that were alien species. These organisms were spreading through the air and various mediums, entering human bodies and taking control of their DNA and nervous systems, thus seizing control of their bodies. This is the result of the alien microorganisms, which has made all humans emotionless and their bodies completely controlled. Carol and Ben were utterly shocked by this revelation, as they could not believe that such a thing as aliens could exist. However, the reality was that those who were behaving strangely were affected by the alien virus, and these alien microorganisms were continuously increasing their population. Carol's primary concern was for her son, so she immediately drove home. When she opened the door to her ex-husband's house, she found several people already there. Carol immediately asked her ex-husband where her son Peter was. The director told her that Peter had gone to play with a friend. Carol did not believe this at all, so she went straight upstairs to check her son's belongings. She had no trust that her ex-husband would take proper care of her child. As Carol was heading back downstairs, she discovered that the door had been locked. Realizing that something was wrong, she was soon approached by her ex-husband, who told her that she only needed to close her eyes. When she opened them and returned to consciousness, she would feel no pain and would be under their control, becoming a part of their team to help them. Carol understood that her ex-husband and everyone in the room had been affected. She tried to escape quickly, but her ex-husband, who was very fast, managed to catch her. He had even thrown up on her face, as the aliens had instructed. Carol was at a loss, not knowing what to do, but she cleaned her face and pushed her ex-husband away to get out. She quickly drove away in her car, trying to get as far from the house as possible. If they managed to affect her too, she would lose control of herself. For now, Carol was only concerned about her son and where he might be. To search for her son, Carol continued driving her car forward. However, she soon encountered a van parked ahead, with several police officers and other people gathered around. Upon closer inspection, Carol realized that all these people had been affected, and the normal-looking individuals were converting others into their community. Carol quickly reversed her car, but unfortunately, there was another car behind her, and she collided directly with it. Removing her car from the spot became quite challenging, so she immediately got out and started running away. All the people there had been affected, their faces showed no emotion, and they began pursuing her at high speed. Carol, avoiding the affected people on the road, reached a railway station. She hurriedly boarded a train, hoping to get far away. However, Carol noticed that the people inside the train were also showing no emotion, indicating that they too were affected. This realization terrified her even more. She quietly took a seat, and soon received a video call from her son, Peter. Peter said he was in a strange place and had no idea where it was. He was very scared and begged Carol to come and save him. Carol was at a loss about how to help her son and began to cry. At that moment, a man sitting on the train signaled Carol, advising her not to show any emotions. He explained that if she showed any emotion and the affected people noticed, she too would be affected. This meant that everyone on the train was pretending to be normal to avoid being attacked and to stay safe. Carol followed his advice and managed to control her emotions, keeping her face completely neutral. Shortly after, the affected individuals boarded the train and began checking who among the passengers was normal. One woman, who was actually normal, became very angry because her husband had been brutally killed by the affected people. The woman, furious, came out and started attacking all the affected individuals. This caused the rest of the people to flee, with the affected ones chasing after them. The affected individuals were throwing a liquid from their mouths, which would gradually control any normal person it touched. To protect themselves, the people retreated to another chamber. However, the number of alien zombies was so high that they began breaking through doors and attacking. One by one, anyone who consumed the affected liquid became controlled and joined the alien community. Only Carol managed to escape and quickly left the metro station. She noticed that most people around her had been controlled by the alien species, so she kept her expressions in check and pretended to be one of them. She continued driving on the road and saw affected police officers capturing normal people to convert them as well. This meant that over time, the alien species were upgrading themselves and making humans do their bidding. Carol was terrified about her own fate, as she was still a normal human. She did her best to hide any emotion on her face. As she began to sweat, an officer approached her, one who was not affected and was pretending to be one of the affected to avoid being controlled. He clearly advised Carol to leave the area immediately. Carol quickly left the place and went home to search for her son, Peter, but he was nowhere to be found. Distraught, she cried and then traveled directly to Ben's place to tell him everything. Both of them were still at the doctor's office, who had previously informed them about the dangerous alien species. The doctor provided additional information, explaining that the virus was continuing to spread. And if the alien virus enters a person's body, it will take control once the person falls asleep. The virus remains inactive until the person sleeps. After that, it fully takes over their mind and starts controlling their body. This made the alien species particularly dangerous, as they could spread through any medium. No one could be sure who was affected and who was not. Therefore, everyone decided that no one should be allowed to sleep. The doctor advised them that there was a laboratory 20 kilometers away where advanced medicines were stored. If they could obtain all the medicines on time, they might be able to protect themselves from the virus. However, reaching that place would involve facing significant dangers. If the affected individuals attacked them along the way, no one would survive because their numbers had become very large. Soon, the CCTV cameras showed many people entering the chamber, who seemed to be affected and had come there searching for others. To save their lives, the group quickly took the back route to get as far away as possible. They then saw affected police officers taking a lady away. Carol recognized this lady as one of her patients. The lady was repeatedly shouting that she had fallen asleep for a short while and that it wasn't her fault. Carol couldn't understand why the alien species didn't attack or control the lady's mind when she fell asleep. This confusion left her quite perplexed. The police officers had already taken the lady away to an unknown location. The doctor went with another lady to the laboratory, as he needed to conduct some experiments to create an antidote to eliminate the alien species. Meanwhile, Carol kept asking Ben why the alien species hadn't attacked her patient's body. To find answers, Carol and Ben reviewed the lady's medical report. They discovered that the lady had chickenpox. Meaning, a small part of her brain wasn't functioning, which might have prevented the alien species from taking over her body due to her pre-existing illness. They both started gathering more detailed information to understand the deficiency of the alien species. Then, Carol remembered that her son Peter had also had chickenpox some time ago, and the same illness was now affecting her. This meant that the alien species couldn't attack Peter's brain either. This was likely the reason why Peter kept calling Carol and asking where he was. Carol felt somewhat reassured by this. Ben called the doctor, who was trying to create an antidote in the laboratory. Ben told him that they needed a precise antidote to eliminate the virus. The doctor mentioned that he needed blood samples from patients who had not been affected by the virus to expedite the process. Ben suggested that they did not need to find the lady since Carol's son was also not affected, and having his blood samples would be sufficient for their work. Carol then received a message from her daughter after a long time, saying that she was taken to her grandmother's place and asking Carol to come and rescue her quickly. Carol became very anxious, worried that if she didn't help her son soon, he might also be affected. However, Ben mentioned that there would be tight security outside, and all those people would be under the control of the aliens, ready to attack. Carol then shared a secret with Ben. When she went to meet her husband, he had vomited on her while being affected, which might mean that the virus could also be in her. However, since she hadn't slept since then, the virus had not taken control of her. Carol was doing everything she could to avoid sleeping. After repeated requests to Ben, they both got ready to leave. Ben instructed Carol to go ahead while he himself wore a police officer's costume and drove a police car to divert the attention of the affected individuals. Everyone started following Ben, which gave Carol a great opportunity to slip away in another direction. Unfortunately, due to the large number of people, Ben was captured and taken into custody elsewhere. Carol made her way into a train where everyone was infected. They stared at her intensely, but Carol didn't change her expressions. She went straight into the washroom and, after coming out, noticed a boy who turned out to be Ben's friend. The boy told her that his mom and dad were killed, so he felt very alone. Carol took Ben's friend with her to her ex-husband's house. Her ex-husband suspected that Carol might be infected, so he didn't respond much. They both quickly reached the grandmother's house, only to find out that Carol's husband's grandmother was also infected. They all sat down for dinner, and Carol tried hard to hide her emotions. Then, Carol received a call from her son, informing her of his location. Without showing any facial expressions, Carol reached her son and was very happy to see him. She quickly took her son and started fleeing from there, as the place was unsafe for them. Unfortunately, her ex-husband had seen them escaping, so everyone started chasing Carol and Peter. Carol hid with her son in a basement to avoid detection, but her ex-husband slowly followed them into the basement. He tried to capture and kill Peter, but it wasn't entirely his fault because the aliens controlled his mind. Before he could harm her son, Carol picked up a rod from behind and directly killed her ex-husband. After eliminating him, Carol took her son Peter to the laboratory that the doctor had mentioned. There, Carol took medication to prevent sleep and quickly converted it into an injection. She instructed her son to inject her with it if she ever tried to sleep because Carol didn't want to become infected after sleeping. Carol informed Ben about her situation and that she was trapped with many infected people trying to get inside. Ben advised her to stay there and assured her he was coming to help. Carol, along with her son Peter, was at the location, struggling to stay awake because if she fell asleep, she would become infected. This was the same scene from the beginning of the story when Carol was searching for medicines to prevent sleep. Carol was extremely exhausted and eventually fell asleep. At that moment, Peter administered the injection, and Carol woke up at the right time, not infected. The alien species had not taken control of her. Shortly after, Ben arrived, and Carol was very happy to see him. However, Carol soon realized that Ben was also infected because his face showed no expressions. Carol quickly aimed a gun at him and told him to leave. But Ben, under the control of the alien species, said that peace had been achieved as there were no emotions among the people and they no longer fought each other. Ben had opened the door, allowing many infected people to enter. Carol was concerned about her son, who was not infected, and asked what would happen to him. Ben simply said that people like her son would be killed. Carol did not like this at all, so she immediately started shooting and eliminated everyone present. She then quickly fled with her son in a car, heading far away. To her shock, it was now known where she was, and several vehicles were pursuing her to capture her. On the way, Carol's car collided, causing significant damage. Infected people under the control of the aliens tried to climb onto and break the car. Fortunately, Carol regained consciousness just in time. She quickly drove the car away and called the doctor, informing him that they needed her son's blood sample to create an antidote for the virus. After giving her location, the doctor instructed her to go to the top of the building, where he would send a helicopter for their rescue. Carol and her son made their way to the designated point, despite being chased by many. They reached the lift and, upon reaching the top, were rescued by the doctor and several soldiers who helped them into the helicopter. The helicopter flew them away without any fuss. All the necessary equipment was ready, and they only needed her son's blood sample, which they likely received. After many days of effort, the scientists successfully developed the antidote. They began distributing it using large military helicopters, and it proved effective. All infected individuals returned to normal. This way, the world was saved, and our adventure story comes to an end.